I would ask you to, as part of this sentencing, to grant me 5 minutes in a locked room with this demon.
Molesting a child or even a minor is a grave sin that even the worst murderer locked up away in jail absolutely detests.
The reason I killed him was because he was a child molester. But you didn't in fact kill him. Oh, sure, and you intended to.
These defendants are about to realize that they not only need to fear going to jail, but the courtroom is equally as dangerous for them. Christopher Elwell has faced numerous charges ranging from fraud to violent offenses. His notoriety has made him a frequent subject of media scrutiny, with every court appearance drawing significant attention. On the day of the attack, Elwell was attending a routine court hearing related to his latest charges. The courtroom was filled with a mix of journalists, legal professionals, and other inmates awaiting their hearings. The atmosphere was tense, as is often the case when Elwell is involved, but no one could have predicted the chaos that was about to unfold. Elwell was brought into the courtroom under heavy security, a standard procedure given his history.
The defendant was required to register as a sex offender and had been living at 12 Mineral Park Drive off and on, but more than 5 times a month, and had not changed his registration with the Somersworth Police Department.
He was charged with sexually assaulting a 4-year-old girl. The victim came over to a home where Elwell was staying. A 9-year-old and another 4-year-old girl were also there.
And they described him showing them videos of sexual acts similar to the ones that she had done.
He was sentenced to 7.5 to 15 years in prison. He was seated in the defendant's area, flanked by security personnel. As the judge was rounding up the proceedings when the unexpected happened, an inmate, identified as Josiah Davies, who was also present in the courtroom for a separate case, managed to break free from his restraints. Josiah Davies, known for his violent tendencies, had a history of altercations with other inmates. However, the connection between Doe and Elwell was not immediately clear. As Elwell sat down beside Davies, Davies suddenly lunged at Elwell, catching everyone off guard. The attack was swift and brutal, with Doe landing several punches on Elwell before the security personnel could intervene. The courtroom erupted into chaos as officers struggled to restrain Doe and protect Elwell. Journalists and onlookers were left in shock, scrambling to make sense of the violent outburst. Elwell, visibly shaken and injured, was quickly escorted out of the courtroom and taken to a nearby hospital for a medical checkup. The immediate aftermath of the attack on Christopher Elwell was nothing short of pandemonium. Court personnel, who were initially stunned by the sudden violence, quickly sprang into action. Security officers rushed to restrain Josiah Davies, who continued to struggle and shout obscenities even as he was being subdued. The judge, visibly shaken, called for an immediate recess and ordered the courtroom to be cleared. Elwell, who had sustained several blows, was quickly surrounded by his legal team and additional security officers. They escorted him out of the courtroom to a secure location within the courthouse. Medical personnel were summoned, and Elwell was taken to a nearby hospital for a thorough examination. Reports later confirmed that he had sustained minor injuries, but was otherwise in stable condition. Josiah Davies, the attacker, was immediately taken into custody and placed in solitary confinement. He now faces additional charges, including assault and battery, which could significantly extend his current sentence. Legal experts have weighed in, suggesting that Doe's actions could lead to severe legal repercussions, including the possibility of being transferred to a higher security facility. Take a seat at the Michigan courtroom as this next victim is about to find out about the depth of a father's love for his child. Larry Nassar, the former USA Gymnastics and Michigan State University doctor, has been at the center of one of the most horrifying abuse scandals in recent history. Over the past 2 decades, Nassar used his trusted position to sexually abuse young girls and women under the guise of medical treatment. The number of identified victims has grown to a staggering 265, with each story more heartbreaking than the last.
This impacted women, children, and families of varying ages, races, and walks of life.
The courtroom has been a place of raw emotion and powerful testimonies. For more than 2 weeks, over 150 women bravely spoke out about the abuse they endured at Nassar's hands. Their statements painted a grim picture of betrayal and pain, leaving no doubt about the extent of Nassar's crimes. As the sentencing phase continued in Eaton County Circuit Court, the tension was palpable. Victims and their families filled the courtroom, seeking justice and closure. Among them was Randall Margraves, the father of 3 daughters who had been abused by Nassar. His daughters, Lauren and Madison Margraves, had just delivered emotional testimonies about their experiences, while a statement from his third daughter, Morgan Margraves, had been read at a previous sentencing. The courtroom was already heavy with emotion when Randall Margraves, visibly distraught, stood up to address the court.
Distraught father have a chance to say something.
Go ahead, sir.
He cursed at Larry Nassar, calling him a demon, and Judge Janice Cunningham quickly reminded him that such language was not permitted.
You son of
In a courtroom, we don't use profanity, but if you have some words that you would like to say, I would like to give you the opportunity to say them.
But Margraves was far from finished. He made a desperate plea to the judge, asking for personal time alone with Nassar.
I would ask you to, as part of this sentencing, to grant me 5 minutes in a locked room with this demon.
When the judge declined, he asked for just 1 minute.
I have
Would
a
you
feeling
do that?
that is not how
Yes or
our.
no?
No, sir, I can't.
Would you
do
give me
that.
1 minute?
You know that I can't do that. That's not how our legal system.
I can't give. Again, the judge refused, explaining that the legal system doesn't work that way. Unable to contain his fury, Margraves responded, "Well, I'm going to have to," and launched into a sprint toward Nassar.
Legal
Well, I'm
system.
gonna have to get something.
The courtroom erupted in chaos as security officers rushed to stop him, grabbing him from behind before he could reach Nassar. As he was being detained, Margraves yelled,
I want that son. Give me 1 minute with that. What if this happened to you guys?
The courtroom was stunned into silence. Michigan Assistant Attorney General Angela Povilaitis quickly addressed the outburst, stating,
Not behave like that. No one can behave like this. I want to make sure it's crystal clear.
as Margraves was escorted out, he retorted,
You haven't lived through it, lady.
You cannot behave like this.
Margraves later apologized for his actions, saying he had lost control and was embarrassed. He said he did not know what his daughters planned to say and that he was there to help them heal. The judge accepted his apology and did not charge him with contempt of court, saying she understood his emotions. While his reaction was understandable, the next victim tried to justify his crime and did not live to tell the story.
Still wouldn't shut up. Still kept telling me he wanted to explain that he didn't do it, that he was being set up and all this stuff, and I don't know, I just got mad and then hit him and then I killed him. When I hit him and knocked him out, and then I took the shoelaces out of his shoes, tied them together, wrapped it around his neck, and strangled him.
On a seemingly ordinary day last week, the prison guards at Saginaw Correctional Facility made a gruesome discovery. Theodore Dyer was found strangled in his cell. The news spread like wildfire, leaving both inmates and staff in a state of shock.
The reason I killed him was because he was a child molester.
You did in fact kill him.
Oh, sure.
And you intended to.
Oh, sure, yes. Well, if it's all right, I'd like to tell you where it started.
Go ahead.
All right, well, he was my bunkie, and I had found out that he was in prison for child molestation.
The initial investigation pointed towards Dyer's cellmate as the prime suspect. The accused cellmate, Steve Sanderson, was immediately moved to another prison as the Michigan State Police launched a thorough investigation into the murder. Theodore Dyer, a name that has now become synonymous with betrayal and horror, was once just an ordinary man living in Grand Haven, Michigan. Born in the 1950s, Dyer led a seemingly unremarkable life. He lived with his girlfriend in a modest apartment and, to the outside world, appeared to be a friendly neighbor. But behind this facade lay a dark and sinister secret. In April 2012, Mary and her 9-year-old daughter moved into the apartment next door to Dyer. Mary, a single mother, quickly formed a bond with Dyer and his girlfriend. They seemed like a kind couple who had taken a special interest in her children. Mary recalls how Dyer and his girlfriend, who never had children of their own, appeared to adopt her kids. They talked daily, and Mary never had any reason to worry about him. Little did she know this trust would soon be shattered in the most horrific way. The turning point came in June 2013. It was a late evening, and Mary's daughter was at Dyer's apartment. Feeling uneasy, Mary decided to go over and bring her daughter home. Something inside her told her not to knock, but to just walk in. She followed her intuition and went straight to Dyer's bedroom. The door was slightly open, and what she saw next would haunt her forever. Mary saw Theodore Dyer sexually assaulting her 9-year-old daughter. In a state of shock and fury, she slammed the door open, grabbed her daughter and rushed rushed back to their apartment. Desperate for clarity, she asked her daughter if what she saw was real. Her daughter confirmed that it was the third time Dyer had assaulted her. Overwhelmed with a mix of emotions, Mary immediately called 911. Theodore Dyer was arrested and later convicted of first-degree criminal sexual conduct. He was sentenced to 25 to 50 years in prison, a sentence that many felt was too lenient for the gravity of his crime. Dyer's arrest and conviction brought a semblance of justice to Mary and her daughter, but the scars of his betrayal would remain forever. Theodore Dyer's life behind bars was anything but peaceful. Serving his 25 to 50-year sentence at the Saginaw Correctional Facility, Dyer was about 10 months into his term when his past caught up with him in the most brutal way. The prison environment, notorious for its harsh justice towards child abusers, became the stage for a shocking turn of events.
So that night he was trying to justify why he did it, and I just told him to be quiet and he would have to leave in the morning to find a new cell. But he continued to talk about it and try to justify it, so he was a little bit bigger than me, so I got down and I hit him in his face a few times, and when he fell, I wrapped a cord around his neck.
Sanderson felt no remorse for strangling him. Instead, he saw it as doing the world some good by eradicating child molesters.
I do what's necessary. I do what some people won't. I mean, you guys are cops. You arrest people all the time for stuff that you wish you could shoot them in the face. I already know that. I'm not stupid. You know, I mean,
I understand.
There's crimes that shouldn't be committed. So, you know, I just don't have any empathy for people.
The news of Dyer's death reached Mary and her daughter, stirring a whirlwind of emotions. Mary admitted to feeling a complex mix of crying and laughing. She never wanted to see anyone die, but in this case, she felt a sense of relief for her daughter. The thought that Theodore Dyer would never harm anyone again brought a strange comfort to their lives.
You know, since this all happened, it's kind of been, people think I'm some kind of hero, well, I'm actually not. I just, you know, did what I thought was best in the time that I was given. I don't know, I've been getting these emails saying that, you know, it's not my position to judge anybody.
This next defendant had gone scot-free in the past, but he is about to face the wrath of a grieving mother. Klaus Grabowski was a convicted sex offender, having previously been sentenced for the sexual abuse of 2 young girls. In 1976, during his detention, Grabowski underwent castration, a drastic measure aimed at curbing his predatory tendencies. 2 years later, he received hormone treatment, further attempting to control his deviant behavior. Despite these interventions, the darkness within him remained. On 5th May 1980, a seemingly ordinary day took a tragic turn. Anna Bachmeier, a 7-year-old girl, decided to skip school to spite her mother. Innocently trying to visit a friend her own age, Anna crossed paths with Klaus Grabowski. Seizing the opportunity, Grabowski abducted the young girl, taking her to his home. What followed was a horrifying sequence of events that would haunt the Bachmeier family forever. According to the prosecutor, Grabowski held Anna captive for several hours. He then strangled her with a pair of tights, a cruel and calculated act. To cover up his heinous crime, he tied Anna's lifeless body, packed her into a box, and buried it in a shallow grave on the canal bank. When arrested, Grabowski claimed he had no intention of sexually abusing Anna. Instead, he alleged that Anna had threatened to tell her mother he had touched her inappropriately, hoping to extort money from him. The trial of Klaus Grabowski began on 6 March 1981 at the Lübeck District Court. The courtroom was filled with tension and anticipation as the community awaited justice for the brutal murder of young Anna Bachmeier. Among those present was Marianne Bachmeier, Anna's grief-stricken mother, who had been living a nightmare since the day her daughter was taken from her. On the 3rd day of the trial, Marianne made a decision that would forever change the course of the proceedings. Consumed by anguish and a burning desire for justice, she smuggled a .22 caliber Beretta pistol into the courtroom. As the trial continued, Marianne's emotions reached a boiling point. She aimed the gun at Klaus Grabowski's back and, in a moment of sheer rage and desperation, pulled the trigger 8 times. 7 of the shots hit their mark, and the 35-year-old defendant was killed instantly. The courtroom erupted in chaos as the reality of what had just occurred sank back in. Marianne Bachmeier's act of vigilante justice sent shockwaves through Germany and beyond. Media coverage was extensive, with television crews from around the world reporting on the sensational case. The public's reaction was divided. While some condemned Marianne's actions, a significant portion of the population showed understanding and even support for her. They saw her as a mother driven to the edge by an unimaginable loss, taking justice into her own hands when the legal system seemed insufficient. Marianne's story captivated the nation. She later sold her life story for about 250,000 Deutschmarks in an exclusive to the news magazine Stern. Her actions and the subsequent media frenzy highlighted the deep emotional and moral complexities surrounding the case. The trial of Klaus Grabowski, already a focal point of public attention, had now become a symbol of a mother's unyielding love and the lengths to which she would go to seek justice for her child. Justice delayed is never denied, and this next defendant is about to realize that. Richard Gross, an 80-year-old man, was once a trusted friend of the Fu family. However, beneath this facade of trust lay a dark and horrifying secret. Gross was charged with 26 felony counts of sexual abuse, crimes that spanned several years and left a lasting impact on his victim, Tyler Fu. The abuse began when Tyler was just 8 years old and continued until he was 15. Gross, who had been a babysitter for Tyler, used his position of trust to commit these heinous acts. The legal battle against Gross began in 2019 when Tyler, now 29, decided to report the abuse to the police. This decision came after his wife showed him an article about sexual abuse, prompting him to confront the painful memories he had tried to bury. Tyler's courage in coming forward led to Gross being charged with multiple counts of sexual abuse. As the case progressed, Gross entered an Alford plea, a type of guilty plea where the defendant does not admit to the crime, but acknowledges that the prosecution has enough evidence to secure a conviction.
See fit to grant him a probationary sentence to follow all the conditions.
This plea deal allowed Gross to avoid prison time, receiving a suspended sentence of 60 to 180 months in state prison. He would only serve time if he violated the conditions of his probation, which included prohibitions on alcohol and marijuana use, living at least 1,000 feet from schools and other facilities used by children, and registering as a sex offender with lifetime supervision. The courtroom was filled with tension on October 2nd, the day of Gross's sentencing. Tyler was present, hoping for justice after years of suffering. However, when the judge announced the suspended sentence, Tyler's emotions reached a boiling point. The thought of Gross walking free after causing so much pain was too much to bear. As the judge announced the suspended sentence, the atmosphere in the courtroom grew increasingly tense. Tyler Fu, who had been silently enduring the proceedings, felt a surge of anger and frustration. The thought of Richard Gross, the man who had caused him so much pain and trauma, walking away without serving prison time was unbearable. As Gross, accompanied by his wife and attorney, began to leave the courtroom, Tyler could no longer contain his emotions. In a moment of overwhelming rage, he stood up and punched the 80-year-old Gross squarely in the face. The impact of the punch was so powerful that Gross fell to the floor, briefly losing consciousness. The courtroom erupted in chaos as security personnel rushed to intervene. Gross's wife, visibly shaken, informed the police that her husband's glasses had been broken during the altercation. Gross was quickly taken to a hospital for medical evaluation, where he later complained of passing out momentarily. The incident left everyone in the courtroom stunned, highlighting the deep emotional scars that Tyler had been carrying for years. Following the attack, Tyler was arrested on a misdemeanor battery charge.
You don't have to say anything else at this point until you get a lawyer to represent you.
Despite the violent nature of his outburst, Tyler later expressed remorse through a statement released by his lawyer. He admitted that while the act was somewhat cathartic, it was not appropriate. He explained that he had been overwhelmed by emotion during the hearing, which led to his impulsive reaction. Tyler also reiterated his deep frustration with the fact that Gross received no prison time, acknowledging that such outcomes are sometimes part of criminal proceedings.
I was extremely angry. He got away with a golden ticket for what he did, and what he's done to me should be punishable by even death. We cannot tolerate sexual abuse of children.
Click on one of the cards on the screen to see more videos like this.